So being okay, so for cyberbullies, right? Being both, a troll myself and also being cyberbullied, a cyberbully victim. Especially for, I have cousins who are 12, 13, and we don't exactly know how to deal with them. Then on Facebook, they will post photos of themselves very explicitly, and the comments will come up. And the thing is, their parents may not exactly be on Facebook. So how far should we, as onlookers, try to stop? Do we stop them online? Do we go to their parents? Do we talk to them directly? What are your views on that? Because cyberbullying, especially for, I believe in secondary school and primary school, is very common. So how do we, as parents or cousins or family members, deal with this the right way?
Can I take this before I pass it on to the expert? Maybe let me answer this question from a parent's perspective. I think when a child goes on Facebook and start having a Facebook account, it is the responsibility of the parents to have a relationship and start the education process with the child. So, like for example, your cousins, they are putting pictures. If your cousin's parents are not Facebook savvy or perhaps working and too busy to monitor them, as the cousin and maybe even the adult, perhaps you can talk to them and educate them. Because I think anybody who goes on Facebook has to be educated. As adults, we are educated, but when kids, even as young as 6 years old, get onto Facebook, even if it's under the parents' parent page, they still need to be educated on being aware and being conscious. And I think kids who have Facebook accounts need to have some sort of maturity and responsibility. If they don't have it, it is wise to not have the account at all. So that's from a parent's perspective. So you need to start the education process.
Picking up from a slightly different perspective, the average story online has about a 24 to 48 hour shelf life, unless it gets prodded and talked and shared. So in the same way as, and I'd be interested to see how many people were bullied normally versus cyberbullying. I don't actually think there's much difference in terms of the overall, just that the kids have a habit of being nasty to each other. It's just clearly on Facebook it tends to be spread more quickly. But in the same advice you would say to somebody, which is don't respond, ignore it, walk away, the same actual behaviours are right in the social environment as well. And the analogy I would draw is when brands sometimes say something stupid on Facebook, and people pile in and say, well, that's rubbish, why have you said this, why have you said that? And if the brand then responds and then responds and then responds, then it amplifies and becomes a much bigger problem because you're responding to the problem. And I think that same principle is right back to the Bible or whatever, it's still the same principle, which is sort of turning the cheek, walk away. And I think that's part of the education that we need to do in the Facebook environment, that sometimes you will do something that may get a response, just don't actually provoke that response further.
I think I want to echo Mei-Ling's point about, I think it's important that parents get to understand what exactly Facebook can do. Because if you do not, right, then it is very difficult for parents to help their kids when they're in trouble. So for example, parents, if they're aware of how the privacy setting on Facebook works, the parents can advise the children that you can actually have different kind of privacy setting, right? So this way, if they want to share certain information, they may be sharing to only a small group of friends who they know. And to answer the question on how do we handle that situation, I think it's tough because cyberbullying is actually, to me, is different from the actual bullying whereby they just beat up each other in the school. The difference is that when it goes online, it's 24/7, and it will just spread so quickly, and it is very, very difficult to take them down because if they just continue to spread some of the photos that they do not want to share, it will just propagate. And because on internet, right, it is so easy for the kids to just reply, with a response. Because when you see it, you get angry, you don't even have a chance to think, and you just reply. And this will just go on. So it is actually very important for parents to guide their children and tell them that in the event of such abuse, what exactly do they need to do. I think going back to the school, if the bully is from the school, I think it's good to go back to the school and talk to the teachers, or even talk to the friend, and try to sort things out, and if possible take down the maybe some rude remarks that is online, right?
Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much.
Is there anyone who would like to ask parents questions?
Hi, my name is Amrullah. I'm not a mom or dad, but I have a question. Okay, yeah. So the question is it's easy for parents to take photos of the kids, post online, play games with them online, Facebook. But do you feel that there could be a growing disconnect between parents and their children in terms of spending time physically together as opposed to online? I'm imagining a scenario where they talk to one another online, but they don't spend much time together. So what do you guys feel about that? Thanks.
Well, pick that up just because that's probably what I was talking about. I think it can go too far. I think we've all seen many places here in Singapore where we're out for lunch and every table's got 10 iPads there where the kids are watching cartoons and there's no real actual social interaction. And I think that's where it can go a bit too far. But I suppose where I see it from a positive spin is it actually creates shared passions and interests, which gives that conversation starter to bridge the gap from parents to kids. And sadly, in many societies, many around the world, often the only conversations once kids get past the sort of preschool area is what did you do at school today? And that becomes the sort of stock in trade. And kids become a little bit scared of that because it's like, what am I doing? Do I share the results I got? Don't I? That sort of thing. To actually have something which is, hey, I found this interesting app, or I found this interesting video I thought you might find funny, and maybe there's an educational purpose, maybe there's not. But it's a new way of opening up conversations. But I take your point. It can go too far. If it just becomes another substitute for not having those social interactions, I mean, I would argue they're the sort of parents who would have been equally bad at socially interacting with their children 20 years ago, and now they've just found another substitute. 20 years ago it was the telly, now it's the iPad.
Thank you very much for asking that question, because I think it's a very valid question for a lot of parents. Facebook, social media is the new technology for all our kids. It's something that we cannot run away with, something that we cannot run away from. So the parents need to take the plunge as well and get onto Facebook. Now the trick then is to find a balance. Facebook did have a rule that you have to be 13 years old before you can have a Facebook account. And that rule is there for a reason, and I think parents need to honor that rule. But I think a lot of parents then get persuaded by their kids. Oh, you're 6 years old. Oh, you're so clever. Okay, like you want to be on the account. Okay, I let you have the Facebook account. So they need to remember that the child needs to have maturity and responsibility before you can allow the child to have the Facebook account. Then, coming to the point where is Facebook creating a divide between parent and child? The answer is not really. Because as you become a teenager, and we all know, I don't know how many teenagers there are or near teenagers there are here, if you remember your teenage years, you don't really talk to your parents, right? I mean, we really don't have that much in common. But Facebook, like what Paul says, provide a platform where the parents can still keep in touch with your child. And a lot of my friends with teenage kids, they are friends. They allow their kids to have Facebook account on the condition that the child accepts them as friends. Then you said, but the kid's very intelligent these days. They can always open up another account. And that's where the parent comes in and say, we allowed you to have only one account. You need to close all the other accounts and just have one account. That's where the education comes in, the trust, the respect, the responsibility. And it is up to the parents to set that platform for the child. And then when the child adds the parent as a friend, of course, as parents, we also must be a little conscientious and don't go in and make too many comments. We are there just as an onlooker. We are not there to interact, but we're there to, like Paul says, maybe we can see what their interests are, maybe we can share interests with them, we can see where they're going, who are they friends with. It's another way for us to monitor them until they arrive at adulthood. Thank you.
I think there was another hand up just now. A few more.
Hi, my name is Noelle. I have a comment and a question. My first comment was on the cyberbullying issue. I just wanted to quickly say that anyone who's been to an all-girls school knows that the bullying that takes place in girls' school is the original cyberbullying. You never needed to be touched, you never needed to be pushed, but the notes and the words and all that sort of stuff that went on, I think that is very similar to what happens in cyberbullying today. So I think there actually are similarities between bullying from 10, 20 years ago and bullying that takes place online now. So I think there are probably similarities in how the two can be dealt with. My question is to do with sort of social media as an industry. I'm not a parent myself, but I work in social media. And one of the very interesting things that Damien Cummings said at the keynote yesterday was that my generation is the last generation that will grow up with that will have any sort of anonymity in our lives. There was a period of my life up until I was 22 or 23 where nothing about me was documented online till I chose to document it online. But my kids, if I choose to document their entire life online, won't have that. Their kids will be able, so my grandkids will be able to see their parents' entire lives online, which my kids wouldn't be able to see. They wouldn't be able to see mine. So that sort of led me to think about two of my friends. Got one very good friend who has a 4-month-old, and everything about his life is on their Facebook page. They set up a Facebook page for him when he was a month old, and everything is there, every single thing. And I've got another very good friend who's got a 2-year-old now, I think, and she and her husband made a decision right at the start that they were not going to post any pictures of him online because they felt that it was not, similar to what Mei-Ling said, it was not their right to decide for him that his life should be published online. So they've got a select group of friends that they email pictures and updates to, just within their family and very, very close friends. But absolutely nothing about this child is online, except for his name, maybe. So just in terms of sort of looking, say, 15, 20 years down the road, where these kids become social media consumers in their own right, I'm wondering whether you guys have any thoughts on those two very different parenting approaches to you know, having your kids' lives online. What sort of impact does that have for those children as social media consumers? Will there be a difference in how they approach social media or how they take part in it? Or do you think there won't be any difference at all in terms of, you know, how they engage with the medium? Thanks.
Big question. Depends which psychology textbooks you read, but most of them say that anything your parents do has an impact on you. I would suggest that, yeah, there will be a difference in terms of how those kids grow up, in terms of how they feel about social media. But only in the same way if you grow up with a vegetarian mum and a vegetarian dad, or if you grow up with somebody who's, you know, hates cars, for example. So anything that is a kind of something the parents believe in will necessarily be transferred onto the kid, and normally there's the I will go with it or I will reject it. I guess one of the things that we need to bear in mind, and it's quite difficult to see past the sort of eclipse that is Facebook, but there will be other things. There will be other platforms, there will be other ways for new youth to find that they can actually communicate and have other logins that their parents don't know about. And that will continue, and has always been the case, whether it's, you know, just finding a secret place to meet long before the, you know, the days of digital, or just moving from one platform to the next. So we need to bear in mind that will be the case, that people will find their own spaces. I think from a parenting perspective, both are equally valid. Sadly for me, I hold the view of the second set of your friends. My wife holds the view of the first. And, my wife's pregnant, and there's lots of pictures going up on Facebook, and I'm not overly happy about it. But there we go. So there needs to be sort of compromise and conversations, even within the parents, let alone with the kids. But I think if you take an open-minded approach to what it is, what the risks are, what the benefits are, and all the things that we've been discussing, then as you are helping a kid grow up and educating them on this, I think it's part of those conversations, but also recognising that they will find their own path and they will be influenced by their own friends and what's hot or what's not at that time as well. And sadly, as parents, there's probably nothing that anyone can do about that. Just have to be ready to deal with things as they pop up.
Thank you for that.
Sorry, can I add on it? So,
Okay.
I'm no expert, but I just basically narrate what my parenting experience has taught me. I think because we really live in a time of technology, and I believe our children can't afford to fear technology. Just like how we parents can't afford the resentment which develops when we shun the use of technology, because they have, I mean, in their time they will be exposed to various types of media, various types of technology, and I think as parents, in a way like what I mentioned just now, when I post pictures on Facebook, I do let them know, or I do let them know, okay, I'm posting this picture, I'm posting an album of our getaway to Malaysia or to Bali, Bangkok. So as I'm posting the pictures, I'm telling them what kind of photos that I'm able to post and what kind of photos that we're not. I do not like to be shared with everybody. So I guess as they grow up, perhaps in their mind they have formed this this frame of mind that what is right and what is wrong to post on Facebook. So to me, I rather have that than their friends teaching them on what kind of pictures to post on Facebook. So yes, I believe in that. Perhaps to teach them as they grow up rather than have their friends teach them.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Paul, my question is to you pointedly, because I came into this session wondering if there are any findings or any links, because this could be probably the psychology textbooks, 15 years from now, where you say, with children who watch so much violence on television, this is how it impacts their lives. And taking off from that comment, which has been the comment of the entire week, which is we were the last generation with anonymity. Are there any findings already of kids who've grown up on social media? How are they different from the generations before them? Just if you have any key insights. I don't know if it, just a couple of minutes will be enough for that, but anything that you could share with us as an audience.
Well, certainly a lot of the work we do with people in their sort of, sort of 16 to 24, they are, pretty much have grown up in the social world. And a lot of the stuff with Adidas is sort of our key clients, so something really looking in that space. You can look at a number of ways. Some call it attention deficit disorder. Some people say amazing fast filtering. Which way you want to look at it. Certainly, the way in which people, these kids are consuming information, processing it, taking it on board or disregarding it, it is pretty outstanding. And for anyone who hasn't grown up in that environment, it's like you can't have read all that, you can't have seen all those things that flick past on your phone, and that in itself is just symbolic of probably a much more scattergun approach to life. So I will be into something now, I'll be into something even an hour later that I've discovered something new, and it's just a lot more happening at the same time. I think finally we will be able to put to bed the myth that men can't multitask, because if we look at youth and look at boys, that they're able to multitask. So finally, a device, a phone, has actually helped men overcome that forever myth. It's in terms of some of the more negative social effects, that's something I think it's difficult to sort of measure at the moment. I think I personally believe that the liberation effects and the democratization of information, inspiration, ideas, all those sort of things from digital, it is so much more powerful than some of the negative effects. Maybe here in a very developed country, it's less obvious the sort of the transition, but if you look at kids and education and their access to things in some of the other countries which are less fortunate in Southeast Asia, but particularly if you then go into South America or Africa, you know, the mobile phone has been the great liberator in terms of both for women, setting up business and entrepreneurship, but also for kids as well in terms of access to education and learning that they would never have been able to have before. And so for me, I just see that as such a huge benefit that it'd be sad to try and control too much in the world of social media. Yes, there is greater exposure to more things that we do not want people to look at, actually society to look at, let alone our kids. And that's something that I think we need to be better at. And I think some countries have blanket ways of looking at it, China being one. Singapore is a very sort of case-by-case working out what is allowed and what's not allowed in the internet space of the NDA. I still think neither of those are perfect solutions, and there needs to be a lot more work to be done in terms of what sort of information is allowed and what people can have access to. It's a challenge because the great people who love the internet talk about freedom of speech, freedom of information, freedom of rights, but there are certain types of information and content, whether it's violence, whether it's sexual, whatever, it's just not right that that's accessible in the way that I think it is at the moment, and that more work does need to be done in that space as well, but not to the detriment of turning everything off. And that's always my concern, is that we can throw all the good stuff out because of what is actually a minority of bad stuff.
Thank you, Paul. There's another question. You have one question?
Hi. I just want to do a different take on what you guys are discussing, because from what I gather, it's a lot about like privacy and Facebook. I want to take a different stance. I have 2 points to make. One on the credibility of answers that come from Facebook, and second on whether there's a need for a secondary space for people to interact other than on Facebook. So the first point would be, say if your kid falls ill and you post a comment like, what should I do, like he has a fever and stuff, would it be more credible to ask these questions on Facebook rather than like a secondary internet forum, like WebMD, which might actually have more accurate answers from like doctors? So that's the first question. The second question is that there are a lot of other secondary kinds of social networks. Like take for example, Facebook does everything, but they don't do one vertical very, very well. Like there's TripAdvisor for travel, there's some for sports. There are always secondary forums out there in the market. And so do you see that there's a need for these secondary forums, or do you see the end result being Facebook converging everything together? Yeah.
If everything's on Facebook, I'll be very upset. That's like communism, isn't it? Everything being controlled by 1%. Having said that, TripAdvisor, 60% of the reviews are made up by the people in the hotels. Write their own reviews to say how good they are. So I guess part of the challenge in any of these forums, whether it's on Facebook or whether it's another social forum, but in terms of, say, as you say, some of the ND, some of the more professional forums, there's a certain level of credibility there. I guess in the same way as when you're asking for advice on anything, it's about taking a number of different reads. I think if people just get sucked into only listening to the most vocal person on Facebook, then there is a danger that some bad decisions can be made. I do actually have a bit of a stat worth sharing that in Singapore, what's interesting across all countries is most people are well aware that they need to be looking at face-to-face recommendations as well as online wisdom of the crowd recommendations, but also expertise as well. So whether that's credible professional endorsement, or whether it's in some cases in other categories, maybe beauty or fashion, celebrity endorsement as well. And for Singapore, it actually has the, in terms of the mix, it's 60% of opinion forming comes from close friends and family, 25% comes from expertise, so that's people who have a credible reason to believe in them, and then 15% from the wisdom of the crowd. Now, as a comparison, that wisdom of the crowd for Singapore is lower than other countries. So that perception of I'll just listen to what anyone has to say about this and go with it, it is actually lower than what we're seeing in say, the likes of the States or the UK. So as a country, Singapore is more either more suspicious or more likely to be taking the values of their friends and family first and foremost. But I think it's worthwhile seeing that even the behaviours that we're seeing, particularly when it's something more important, people are not just relying on one space. They're doing quite a lot of deep level research, whether that's going to other sites such as say TripAdvisor, but also sort of finding some of the more obscure ways to get information, because and we talked about Kiasu earlier, but more the fear of making the wrong decision is something that's also really important. And so actually going across loads of different channels is something we're seeing, particularly in mums here in Singapore.
Oh, we have one question for the front here. Mike.
Just harking back on the themes of responsibility of Facebook users, photos. I've got 2 blonde-haired kids, and here and when we travel in Asia, they stick out. Lots of people want to take photos of them, which I quite strongly try to stop happening. It does happen. Another situation that happened more recently when I approached a person and said, please don't take a photo. They said that they were putting it on their Facebook page. Now, how as parents who want to protect their kids, sure it's innocent, okay, but how as parents, how do we, are other parents worried about it, and how do we protect our kids from this?
Would you like to answer?
I think this is a very good question that I think a lot of parents want to know. Well, when we travel, we do see a lot of Asians, Japanese who are enamored with blonde hair, blue-eyed kids. So, my empathies. How can we stop it? If you've told them very respectfully, if you're going to put it on Facebook, then please delete the pictures. I would just tell them very respectfully not to take pictures. I do have a son who some things are quite good looking and they do take pictures, and I do ask them, not to as well. I do say no, because I don't know the stranger. I say I'm sorry, no. That's how I do. And if they do insist on taking pictures, I will just pull my son away and walk away. Yeah.
Sometimes it's better not to be polite, to be safe.
Yeah.
You had a question? I just wanted to share my own experience. I'm a relatively new mother. I've got a 21-month-old son. So I just wanted to share my bit of experience about sources of information that my husband and I use, and maybe to address the bit about also soliciting, let's just say, advice or opinion from medical or trained professionals. So to summarize, basically I would regard myself as quite a slack parent, a lazy parent, just because I'm a full-time working mother. Parenting, I think most of us parents would agree, it's a very individual thing. There's no right or wrong. It's up to the individual parent or parents to make the decision what they feel is best for their own family unit. Coming back to my own experience with my son, shortly after he was born, we had to take him to a pediatrician for his first vaccination. As I mentioned, as I'm quite a slack mother, I didn't do that much research. So basically, I didn't have any advice or particular recommendation about which pediatrician to go to. Particularly being raised and born and bred here in Singapore, we've got very good medical professionals, so it's not something that I was overly concerned about. So what I did was I decided to go to the pediatrician who was in the operating room that I delivered my little baby, just so that there's a bit of a follow-through. It turned out to be a pediatrician on Orchard Road that we paid top dollar for. which I wasn't particularly perturbed about, but I did expect to be given very good advice. Basically, in the course of going for the first vaccination, my husband asked the question of, oh, you know, what is the likelihood of our little boy getting a fever after the 6-in-1 vaccination? I did the bare minimum sort of reading up, and basically this pediatrician said to us, oh, statistically very low, because he gave us a stat like, oh, something like 87% of kids don't actually develop a fever out of this vaccination. But in the course of talking to my friends, I've got a very close, small group, closely knit group of friends. Fortunately, they're a bit more developed in the parenting, as in they've got older kids and so forth. Practically, the statistics is reversed in talking to the small group of closely knit friends that I have that have kids that, you know, 1 or 2 child, they've been through the process, and they basically said, look, you know, most of the kids would develop fever. So my husband, and I guess being quite vocal and being a Westerner, he wouldn't take no for an answer. And being a risk manager by training, he said, no, how can that be? Yeah, it is the reverse in terms of speaking to family and friends. So basically, we followed through with it, gave the little one, went through with a 6-in-1 vaccination, and lo and behold, true enough, he developed quite high fever. Yeah. We subsequently decided, okay, we paid top dollar, wasn't that great advice, and we still weren't convinced with the advice coming from a trained, top-class medical professional that we had sought, you know, opinion on. Thereafter, we decided to go to a more local pediatrician. That was when I solicited other opinions from online forums. So coming back to the point earlier, there are loads of sources of information, some better than others. Again, it's up to your own individual judgment to decipher from the loads of opinions out there, make your own decisions, because there's no right or wrong. And on the flip side, there is also admittedly a lot of garbage, for lack of a better word, on the web as well and on forums and so forth. So to cut the long story short, we went to a different pediatrician, which caters to more of the local community, rather than to, you know, the typical people who would go to an Orchard Road sort of pediatrician. And basically, we were very enlightened to learn that we actually had the option of splitting the vaccination into 2 doses, a 5+1 and hepatitis B. The advantages are that because you will be introducing 2 viruses at different points in time, the chances of the kid developing developing fever would be much lower. The downsides are that it's inconvenient for parents to take the baby for 2 trips rather than 1, and it would be a tad more costly. But this is where I would just basically like to, you know, sort of say to new parents, and just the comment made by that earlier gentleman, thank you very much. But, you know, I just wanted to caution that based on my own experience as a new mother, that, you know, yes, medical practitioners are good, but they don't often give you the full perspective of the advice that you would have hoped or thought that they should share with you.
Can I add on? This is speaking from a personal point of view. Yeah, because I'm a parent of a 3.5-year-old boy. I think that we have to be very selective on this information that we see on Facebook. Some of the useful information I thought I have received over the last few years is where the other parents hang out with their kids. So sometimes I do not know that there's a new playground in town, you know. So through Facebook, then we know where are the places we should bring our kids to, or what kind of toys that may be useful to them. So with that, I think information from Facebook is useful. But speaking from someone from the internet security industry, right? I also want to highlight that some of the information that our friends share, it could be a spam that they have unknowingly created.